Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first edition of Style Lab podcast. Our first guest is a very special guest. The amount of elegance that our guest has been involved in is unprecedented, in my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, John Vizzone.
Oh, hi. Great to meet you guys. Very excited about this and really happy to be the first in this series of many.
Absolutely. I mean, John, it was a must, we'll get into a lot of the things within the next few minutes, but I want to start because a lot of my audience may not be as familiar with you. So I'd like to start from the beginning, if that's okay.
No, that's fine.
For you in life, what was the defining moment for you where you knew, like, I want to work in the menswear industry?
Okay, this is really interesting. So I went to Catholic school and we had to wear uniforms.
Okay.
And the uniform was a gray pair of pants. And at 7 years old, I was already totally concerned about the length of the pant. I had to have the crease. Also, I would wear a certain shoe and I had to find that certain shoe. It had to be polished. My shirt had to be pressed. The plaid tie had to be perfect. So at 7 years old, I was already in complete control of how I wanted to present myself.
So Catholic school, let's fast forward to high school graduation. I'm sure that passion stayed there.
Yes.
So you get out of high school, what happens next?
Well, actually, I got out of high school in the 70s, so
okay.
The disco influence had a lot to do with fashion.
Okay.
And, it was very, very kind of flashy. So then the flashiness, for some reason, turned into ultra conservatism.
Okay.
There was sort of a breakdown, and I became very, very, very conservative and very old school waspy dressing, I would say.
Man, listen, I love that. That's my style. Obviously, I worked at Ralph Lauren, so that I love that rich sense of dressing, which you obviously have always done great. So when you after that happened, you went to, is it Brooks Brothers first?
Well, my first real job was Brooks Brothers.
Okay.
And at that time, Brooks Brothers was owned by Allied, and it was very, very old school. And, I was the assistant buyer for odd sport coats and trousers, and it was very, very, in the 30s.
Okay, so super traditional.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was a very good learning curve for me.
Okay.
And some of those relationships I formed, I'm still in contact with.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you work at Brooks Brothers. You were there how long?
I was in Brooks Brothers for 2 years. And then while I was in Brooks Brothers, I got friendly with one of the creative directors who wanted me to meet a young new designer called Alan Flusser.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I was receptive, I was young, and I went to meet Alan, and I had no idea about all of this English stuff, Anderson and Shepard,
right.
John Lobb, Cleverly. I had no idea about apparel arts, and really that was I dove into the pool and really, really one-on-one for 2 years of just constant old school apparel arts / traditional English dressing.
Yeah. So what was that? I'm curious. What was that first conversation like with Mr. Flusser? Did you guys kind of
No, I can tell you. The first conversation was we were both from New Jersey. Alan was from South Orange, and I was from Montclair. And he said, there's two Jersey guys talking about English clothes. And, I was very receptive. I'm still very receptive. And Alan, I don't know, we just sort of took a liking to me. And
sure.
I was young and impressionable, and I think he thought he could form me or school me into understanding about really menswear.
No, absolutely. No one better to work with than Mr. Flusser.
Yeah.
Now,
Alan was a great guy. He was super nice.
Very well dressed. Even to this day, it's not too many people in the industry that, in my opinion, that have his sense of taste and even his sense of style. To this day, Alan Flusser, he's one of the first guys that I really saw. I saw Alan Flusser with a pair of Belgian loafers, because I seen him and I was like, I don't know if I was obviously a little younger. I was like, I don't know if I could pull that off, but I saw him in I want to say gentleman's, I forgot what was the name, but it was a blog like 2014, 2013. It was a long time ago, but I mean, he had like an amazing ensemble, Belgian loafers. I mean, Mr. Flusser is like one of the most tasteful people I've ever seen. So you all take a liking to each other. You start working with him. How did because I do know you were involved and you did work on the Wall Street.
So Mike, it was interesting. I was in charge of the shop. We had a shop on 52nd Street across from a really famous French restaurant that I completely went blank. But anyway, it was a very, very old school, and Alan did it like in the 1930s. The walls were like a mustard color, and we had a bar, and we had stacks of apparel arts, and you would have a drink. It wasn't a real conventional store. It was more like a men's club. It was beautiful. And it was one day, Alan said, we're going to be doing a movie. He said, I don't know how big this movie is going to be, but Michael Douglas will be coming in. So the doorbell rings, and I opened the door, and I said, hi, and he said, I'm Michael Douglas.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I'm John Vizzone, nice to meet you. And, I have to keep this politically correct, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So he said, the first thing he said was, am I supposed to get my own driver? So that was my first sort of touch into celebrity personalities, and it was pretty fun. But Michael was great to work with, and we had no idea the movie would have this much or that much influence on men's fashion, and it was fun to do. But again, I never thought it would be such a big deal.
No, at that time, because Mr. Flusser, like you said, that, in my opinion, I wasn't around, I was born in 1987, but even with that wardrobe, because the first time I saw the movie, my father, I was watching it with my dad, and I was like, Dad, what is this? And he was like, it's Wall Street. He was like, it's Oliver Stone. It's a great movie, but he was like, I really just watch it because of the clothes. He was like, the story's good, but he was like, this is by far the sharpest fictional character I've ever seen. So how did things change after the movie? I would assume it had since the movie was so big.
Well, no,
right?
at the time it was in the early 80s, so we had all of the Wall Street guys, all the heavy hitters, Roger Stone, and the list goes on and on and on. And that was my first time I met Roger Stone.
Wow.
So all of these guys, if you see the way he dresses, that was very much influenced. And at the time, he was only making his clothes with Alan. That was even before he knew about Anderson and Shepard. Alan really turned him on to Anderson and Shepard. But having said that, it was busy. It was constant. And, everybody wanted to have that power suit. Everybody wanted to have the so-called English Anderson and Shepard-esque suit. And, it was at the time, it seemed very new. And Alan had something to say. And I think it caught on. As time went on, obviously, it became, it didn't seem as new, or it doesn't seem as new now, but still, it does hold. It holds its own weight, I could say.
Well, and even too, I believe one thing Mr. Flusser has really done a good job of, or at least the shop, the company, like a gentleman like Roger Stone, who obviously has been shopping with Mr. Flusser for years. I've seen like a lot of interviews with him, and I'm talking like not the political stuff, like just him talking style, like taking all that out of it. He really knows a lot about style, like Mr. Stone, like as far as like, or more than the average guy, I would say. Like you can tell he's been shopping with.
I'll give you the story. So Roger, when he first started, was a skinny guy, nice guy.
Right.
He is not anything to do with the person he is now. He was very, very humble, really a nice person.
Okay.
And he was very, very curious. And he wanted to present himself in a way that was different than everyone else. And, Alan was very much a heavy-duty influence on him.
Sure. Now, knowing Mr. Flusser is a huge fan of, the Fred Astaire's, the Cary Grants, the Gary Coopers, and, those stylish guys. Were you a huge fan, and had you taken a huge liking to those guys before the Flusser introduction, or was that something?
No. Alan, I will give Alan, again, I was very naive and I was young. And Alan really, and if Alan's listening to this podcast, he would appreciate this, but he is the one who really turned me on to, whether it be David Niven, Cary Grant, name all the great dressers of our day. And he was that guy.
Yeah. And,
and I do take my heavy duty learning and my my success, we'll get to that later, but my success with Ralph Lauren has very much to do with how I was